Hello, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Fire Theft Radio. Nicolai, thanks for helping me out and coming back. And you're using your time to help a brother out. I appreciate that, brother.
Anytime, man. Always glad to be here. Very excited for tonight. I was doing some prep earlier today, and I'm pretty excited.
Cool. So let's not waste any time. As you saw already on the title, we got Jim Wilhemsen on the show, and if you don't know who he is, he wrote actually a book that I need to read, Beyond Science Fiction, and it was a researcher who's been doing the research that we have been barely getting into these days, and he was doing it in the late 70s. So we're late to the punch, man. We're really late, but it's all good. So I want to read a little bit about what this book is about. Jim has had a lifelong interest in UFOs since he was a child. In the late 50s, this led to his current position as a religious research specialist for the Mutual UFO Network since 1996. He is also a member of the Alumni and Center Bible College and was ordained by the Independent Assemblies of God in 1980. That's still 5 years before I was born. Just saying. Jim provides biblical counseling for victims of alien abduction. Okay. As a public speaker, he warns of the coming deception of UFOs and aliens conspired by the New World Order as prophesied in the Bible. Welcome to the show, Jim. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for taking the time to come on with us. I know we're 3 hours apart as far as time, and you were like, let's do it as long as it doesn't interrupt with my grandkids, which is respectable for sure. So thanks for coming on, man. How's it going over there where you are?
Well, it's going crazy. Everybody that is really closely knit with the Lord and really wanting to be in touch and in tune and warn people of the things that are coming, man, we are busier now than ever before. I mean,
Wow.
I truly believe we're at the end of the end, and Satan is pouring it on 100% as much as he can to everyone he feels is a threat. So that means, many of us that are in leadership and capacities, like I consider if you have a podcast, you've been doing it for 5 years, you're already deep in the fray. And, they, whoever they might be, know who you are. There's no running away. There's no hiding. I mean, it's like all of the camouflage, all of the rocks that they're hiding behind, they're all exposed now. We're exposed now. This is the final battle, and we have to be confident and ready and willing to serve in these last days. And I think we are. I think the body's coming together better now than ever before. A lot of us are setting aside our theology and our politics to really get together and be united. I know in my flock locally here, my God, we have accomplished the incredible. We have Calvinists and Arminians working together.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yes. And they're willing to set aside everything to focus on the Great Commission. Let's just agree to disagree on what we don't have in common, not make it an issue, leave it at the doorstep, come in, let's work on the Great Commission to go into all the world and preach the gospel. Then the end shall come. And by golly, it's working. It's not been easy. It's hard, but it can work. Of course, with me, you can't nail me down theologically or anything, or even political. I mean, I'm a Calmanianist, is what I tell people. I'm a little of both and a lot of neither, and I can see where there's harmony and not conflict.
Right.
If everybody fighting and arguing, we could see how everything is in a harmony. And we're getting off because people don't even know who I am yet. So I guess I probably should back up.
Right. No problem. So I think a lot of people might know who you are just because we got some cross listeners from Canary Cry and different things like that. So I'm sure they know the name. But if they don't know, just in case, I mean, you are a person who believes in God, in the Bible, but also works with the alien abduction phenomenon. So how did that come about? According to, the back of your book, it says that you started that interest in the 50s. So how did that happen?
Well, it's like the hair club for men. I'm not only you know involved in it idealistically. I was personally involved.
Oh.
I was I would call them science fiction dreams when I was a kid, but from about 5 years old to about 12 years old, I was being abducted, not by the Greys. I didn't get poked and prodded or anything. It was by the Nordics. And they were playing mind games
Ooh.
and stroking my ego and
The good
everything.
looking ones, huh?
Yeah, the good looking ones. Yeah. And they're not scary. And they're kind of what they do is they stroke your ego. They keep telling you that you're learning and training all these things for a bigger purpose, in later days. And we're just prepping you for this. I remember one time
Mm.
I was arguing with them. They were trying to make me turn this box inside out with my mind. And I kept arguing with them. I said, look, why, I got a big test tomorrow. I want to do good. I want to,
Hmm.
I want to be a scientist. I want to do something in the world and be good, but I can't do it if I'm here playing around with these stupid games. And then as I said stupid games, I'm looking around and almost my entire class is in there
Oh
and
wow.
they're going through the same kind of
Wow.
training. Now, I didn't even have an understanding of this, turning the box inside out until I heard this from a very well-known abductee that was telling her story of her abduction. And as soon as she said that, I had that flash, and all of a sudden, I had a whole memory of the abduction and the dream. But when I was a kid, I just called them science fiction dreams. I didn't know they were real. I thought they were just simply dreams, and that's the way they mask and hide the experience. So they make you think you just had a dream. When I was in my late 40s and starting to write my book, that and in investigating the whole topic of alien abduction, when I heard that about the ringing in the ears, the shadow people, I'm going, oh my God, that defines my childhood because I remember if I got a ringing in my ear that night, I knew, oh God, I knew that I was going to have these science fiction dreams.
Mm.
And I would go into my room, and the scary part would happen. I would see just out of the peripheral vision of my eyes, I could sense a presence in the room. And I knew actually that they were the Greys because they were, just projecting their thoughts into my mind. And they scared literally the heck out of me. And I threw my covers over my head, and I thought I passed out. But that's when I was actually taken. The next thing see myself like in a ship or in some kind of usually kind of like a feeling like I was in some kind of a ship. One time they even showed me that I was way out in space and I saw Earth far away, and it scared the heck out of me.
Mm.
Um, but there were other times it's almost like I was in school for instruction purposes.
Now,
And
question before you get a little deeper. What do you mean by shadow people? Just because what you're explaining right now reminds me a little bit of my childhood, but that's because me and my mother used to practice witchcraft. And when it got serious, when we got deeper and deeper, I would have experiences during the witching hour and things like that where I would have shadow people over my bed and they would hold me
yeah,
down and sleep paralysis and they would call my name and things like that. So it kind of reminded me of that. So it's kind of interesting that you're quote unquote like alien abduction. I say that because it seems to be a little bit nefarious or evil or connected to, these spiritual entities and things like that.
well, it is. It's always associated to the occult, and I mean it's like a magnet, and they'll be whatever you want them to be, or whatever they don't want you to be. I mean, they're there to scare the heaven out of you.
Right.
They're there to, take you away from Jesus. So whatever form, they're very pliable. Whatever form to either
Mm.
entice you or to scare the tar out of you, that's what they're going to be and that's what they're going to do. So the shadow people are always associated with occult activity and occult work. And I guess that's where, it's not that big of a leap. People wonder, well, gosh, you do counseling and deliverance from alien abduction. Yeah, but it's not, I don't do anything extraordinary from what we already know in fighting the enemy because it's the same enemy. He's just coming in different forms.
Mm.
So if they want to pretend to be aliens, they will. They're not aliens, they're fallen angels. Um, and that in itself presents a problem with most Christianity seems to think that there's a difference or there's no difference between demons and fallen angels.
Right.
Demons are incorporeal entities. Fallen angels are just as physical as you and I.
Mm.
And that can be more than proven even in the scriptures. I
Right.
love the when we go back and we look in the scriptures, it says that the children of Israel ate manna. Well, and in Psalms it says that did they not eat manna, the food of the angel, or the corn of heaven, the food of the angels?
Mm.
Food of the angels? Oh, geez, if they're eating food, I guess they're pretty physical.
Right.
That must that means up there in heaven, in the third heaven, that means there's got to be some angel outhouses or toilets or bathrooms. I mean,
Right.
what goes comes out. I mean, so they're very physical indeed. And this is where the deception will come in because most people are thinking that they're just incorporeal, you know, kind of will o' the wisp spirits, and they're not really tangibly physical, but they are very tangibly physical.
Right.
Um, and there's a difference between fallen angels and demons. So
Around.
there's a lot of traditional man-made things that we hang to that really have no substance in the scriptures. The Bible will always interpret itself by itself,
Right.
and when it does, we have to follow that.
Right. I was
Now,
gonna ask.
you mentioned, oh, go ahead.
No, no. I was just gonna ask you about what year did you start experiencing these abductions, and why do you think it's ramped up so much? I mean, I was gonna ask you another question, and probably this one's more important before this one. I recently had a guest on. His name is Nathan Zeber, and he was actually a chief investigator for MUFON in Canada, and he's also a pastor. And so we did 2 episodes together, and one of the things that he brought up that was I thought was very interesting is a lot of abductees or experiencers, as they call them now, uh, had family members. It was like a lineage thing that were also experiencing abductions. Was that something that you experienced as well? Did someone in your family or in your past or in your future, I don't know, experience the same thing that you did?
Well, it's multiple layered. Some of it is for appealing to someone's mind. Some of it is they desire certain genetic traits. And yes, it's definitely linked to family, and it's usually progressive, uh, from generation to generation. Um, I would have to say in my own family, I don't know anybody that actually had the abduction experience, but uh, had delved occasionally in occult things one
Mm.
way or another. And this is where the attraction first came in.
Right, right.
And so they're like, once they cling on to a family, they're going to use it for whatever purpose they can against the Lord and against His people and against His word. So, it can be multifunctional. But I have found that genetics has something to do with it too. I mean, they're definitely looking for a certain profile, and it's not limited to race. However, the white race is predominantly being abducted more than anyone else. Race anymore is so touchy sensitive. It's kind of
Especially
silly, I
these
think.
days,
But
right? Yeah.
the fact is, I remember when I was at a MUFON meeting and I approached Dr. Jacobs and Bud Hopkins when he was still alive. And I asked them, I said, is there any particular race that's abducted more than others? They kind of looked at each other kind of nervous. They wanted to answer the question, politically correct as they could, but be honest with me too. So they said, well, yeah, um, whites, and usually whites with like a Scandinavian or Nordic descent seems to be more predominant than anyone else, but we don't really
Wow.
know why. I said, gee, I know why. I've seen it in the scriptures. And
H-
when I talk to the secular
How
people, I
so?
talk to them just as if, I mean, I'm very comfortable with my faith. I talk to them just like it's very normal for me to talk about very supernatural things, which will take them by surprise. But I'm not, you know, when I was a biker, I was bold in proclaiming all of my rebellion. So when I become a Christian, why not be just as bold in proclaiming Him? I'm
Mm.
not going to be shy. I'm going to be bold.
Amen
Yeah,
to
you
that.
just act as though it's true.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like it's a normal, common, everyday thing with me, but it is. But I found them both to be honest people that are really trying to find, an answer to the best that they could. Now, Dr. Jacobs told me, he says, well, we can't really stop them. All we can do is help them get through it. And I said, well, what's kind of funny? What I've noticed is that you notice that all of the aliens, when they approach any of us, whether they be, any type of alien, they all say that we've got the Jesus of the Bible wrong. And I said, would you agree with that? And he said, yeah, that seems to be what what it says. And I said, well, I have terminated alien abduction victims totally, terminated and quit. No more attacks, no more anything. But you know what I did? The Jesus in the Bible that they say we got wrong, that's the Jesus of the Bible and his authority that I've been able to set people free. It's not me. I don't have any special, talents or abilities or formulas or anything. I have a faith in Christ. I believe his word. I believe that I can speak that word into someone else. I said, the first thing is that I can't really help these people unless they are willing to surrender their lives to Jesus Christ and become a Christian. If they do that, you know what, then I can get them set free.
Right.
Now, there's times I have worked with non-Christians, but that's very, very rare, and I have to really be led of the Lord to do that.
Now, when you say Dr. Jacobs, do you mean David Jacobs?
Yes, David Jacobs.
Okay.
Yes.
Excellent. Yeah. Yeah, I just picked up his book, Walking Among Us. So I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
I haven't seen any of his more recent works. I remember the first original work he had, and he was still open to the idea that some aliens could be good. I think he's taken more of a position that, wow, these guys are liars. There's something wrong here, and I think we're being duped. Now, there's many others that you can still see regularly on Ancient Aliens on the History Channel, and some of them have had a different tune. And I think it's because of the influence when we used to do the Ancient of Days conferences in Roswell on the 4th of July. We had a lot of secular people working or coming with us, and we got a chance to share with them our biblical findings. We thought they would be excited, to see that this all tied in. Most of them were not. I mean, they're trying to find some way of coming against the anti-biblical perceptions 100%. But we're talking almost 40 years now since those days, and many of them have softened up. Many of them are really realizing, wow, these Christians had it right. I mean, things are different.
Now, question.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Nicolai.
Oh, I was just going to say, the Dr. Jacobs, he was in the news recently. There's an article that went out, and they had picked up on the detail that he is of the belief that there are hybrids that are walking among us, or potentially just aliens walking among us. But he's not a believer. He's, as far as I know, he's informed, but not of allegiance, as they
Right.
would say. And so, what do you think as far as I know from a Christian perspective, we can talk about that as well. But why would they put an article out talking about him and his theory? I think it was just last week that really pushes this idea. Is there some sort of a transition where they're starting to talk about, they changed UFO, now I think it's what, UAEs, and now we're actually talking about aliens among us. Is there a shift in how the secular world is approaching
Oh, absolutely.
UFOs and aliens?
Absolutely. And the bad news is that it's all being presented as a Trojan horse, because, in a sense, what it comes down to is what I call the ancient aliens religion. This is what they're promoting. This is what they're getting the crowds prepped for. They're getting them used to the idea that, they're among us. I've been saying that for years. And, people looked at me like I was the alien. I said, now I was even before I published my book, I waited almost 7 years. I wanted to make sure that every disclaimer was in my book, that nobody was going to walk into a McDonald's and whack 10 people and say, they were Nephilim. I read it in this book. I wanted to make sure that it was off that book, and I took every precaution, and I have tried to do that. But in anything, you're always going to get the nuts and kooks that are going to do that no matter what. And fortunately, that hasn't happened. But I think what we're being prepped for is the fact to just getting used to the idea that a certain amount of humanity has been working side by side along with so-called aliens, and they're going to put the spin on it that they're here to help us out, and they didn't want to traumatize society, and that's why they had to keep themselves. These guys are BSers. They're liars. They've always been liars. They do everything in darkness. They do everything in graduated levels of initiation. I mean, just like the occult always does. So the occult is the occult.
Yeah.
And by their own words and actions, they prove to be what they are: liars and destroyers.
What is the propaganda you feel? Because I like to say it on the show, but I want you to say it because you're an experiencer, you're an abductee. What is the propaganda you've seen since the 50s until now to prepare people to be okay with aliens and that religion.
Well, they're going to tell us that they have been trying to accelerate the human genetics, advancing us intellectually, and preparing us, trying to modify some of our humanity to be above or superhuman to meet the challenges that are coming upon the earth.
Right.
That it's for a higher noble cause. And some of them to the point of a Machiavellian kind of a thing, the end justifies the means. Um, like the old Star Trek thing, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one. Well, I remember my Lord saying that no, he will leave the many and seek out the one to bring him back into the many. God's big enough where he's not going to leave anyone behind.
Right.
So,
Because as I've grown up, I mean, I bought into it hook, line, and sinker when I was younger. The propaganda, and I would say what I want to get into is, I guess, like the art form of the propaganda. Like, we see our Marvel movies today. We see the remakes of Alien movies, all like the Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind, Third Kind, and or whatever, and all those kinds of things seem to propagate this idea, like ET. Everyone's about it. At work, I hear often people talk about it. Oh yeah, for sure, aliens are real. I mean, so much so. I mean, I think we talked about it a little bit, and maybe in a previous episode or on Instagram or something. They totally said this a few months ago, last year. Oh yeah, aliens are real, UFOs are real, and nobody batted an eye. Like, it was just, oh yeah, for sure. Let's keep going, and that was it. It was just very weird. And on top of that, right after that, let's hire theologians. NASA's hiring theologians.
I was going to bring that up. Yes.
And what do you think about that? What's going on with there?
Well, that's got to tell you something right there. Now they wanted these theologians for two different reasons. One of them, they wanted them to see what the impact was if let's say the church was aware that there was aliens present in our midst working with the human race. How would that impact Christianity? The others, and this is what I'm finding very interesting. The other reason they wanted Christians brought into this, and I was really figuring that they would bring in Dr. Mike Heiser. They didn't, so I don't think they want the real truth.
Right.
But they are wanting people that are aware on our level what we know. You know why? They wanted to know all of the Jewish feasts, festivals, and holidays, and how that goes into conjunction with the occult holidays. Because one thing that I never believed in before, but it's true, and had it proven to me is true, and that is, would you ever notice that NASA has a window of opportunity? They have a window to launch. You ever hear them say that all
Right.
the time about we have a window to launch?
Right.
Did you know that they always launch on certain occult Sabbath holidays or days?
Oh, really?
Because encrypted in that mythical thing are actual realities that the Van Allen belts do keep us from preventing to go into outer space. But there's times where there's gaps and voids where they can go and you can get released. I never believed that before, but I found it to be an absolute truth through some sources that I have. Now, I've been doing this a long time, so I've had people contact me. I didn't contact them. They contacted me. They said, Jim, you're the closest to the truth to what I know is reality. I can't go too much further than that, but I can say that they're on the highest level of the Department of Defense. They're Christians. They love the Lord. And they they have worked in a unique position where they know they're leaking stuff out, but they can't stop them because they're too valuable to the programs that are going on. Now, the ones I'm talking about, they don't know whether some of this stuff is from the swamp people or whether it's for, the good guys are using it. They pray over these vehicles as they're testing them. They pray that God will ultimately they will be used for God's glory. You don't know who it's for, but they're praying over them and everything. I think that's awesome. I
So
mean, God has sprinkled his people all over everywhere.
that is great, because we get snippets of truth where otherwise we just wouldn't even know. We would be completely in the dark. And as they say, as the Bible says, there's nothing in darkness that will not be revealed. So that's
Yeah.
definitely telling to what the scripture says. I want to go back to something that you said earlier. That you said that you weren't surprised when they said it's mostly white people that were being abducted, and that was a scriptural thing. Like, what did you mean by that?
Well, everything. Now, if you see the cover of my book, Adolf Hitler's on the cover of it. He has got more to do with UFOs and aliens than probably anyone else on the planet.
Mm.
Because
Open it
you
up.
look at all of the projects and programs that they were doing in the death camps, experimenting on Jews, horrendous, horrible things. But you know what? You look at exactly what they were doing, and then you look at what's going on in uh, scientifically, what is being claimed to happen to abductees. It's the continuation of the same agenda, the same program, the same experiments, the same kind of testing. Everything is the same. Nothing's changed except the outer package. Instead of being a bunch of goose-stepping Nazis doing it, now it's a bunch of aliens that are doing it. But it's the same program. It's the same testing. It's identical.
Mm.
Um, and that in itself, just shows a lot. The My claim is that the Nazis never lost the war.
Mm.
They just changed addresses to the United States through
Right.
Operation Paperclip. We
Right.
brought over all these goose-stepping, Messiah praising Hitler as the Messiah over here. They didn't turn into good little Americans. They came over here and seduced us to the point where they could produce actual technology that was occult-based technology, but it produced results, and it changed us from within, so that our very infrastructure um, of our whole government, our whole scientific community first realized, oh my gosh, these guys, we got to rethink a lot of this stuff. Look what they're able to produce. We haven't been able to come up with it, and yet a lot of it was borrowed from us in the beginning.
Right.
A lot of John Goddard's experiments with rocketry was rejected in the United States, but Werner von Braun was sure paying attention. That was his inspiration to do all of his work. Um, Same with many of the other scientists. There was things that were rejected here, but they accepted it, took notes, and started studying. Hitler was great with the idea of seeing that encrypted in myth and legends was real science, and we're going to take the science out of it and leave the metaphysical part alone. But where Himmler loved it, he would be like a major New Age Fruit Loop today if he were still alive. But I mean, um, Hitler saw past that. He says, I'm not. He wasn't into all of the incantations and all the other stuff. He just wanted the pure science and technology extracted
The
from it.
results, right?
Yeah, so at Wellisburg Castle, it was like I put in my book, it's like a think tank, a humanity think tanks with guns. They had the license to do anything they want to anyone they want, anywhere they wanted, but they had to produce results. And as long as they did, then, you know, they could look way outside of the box into all kinds of stuff. Well, if you're always looking outside of the box, you're going to find something that other people haven't found yet. And that's what they did. And they come in contact, I believe, um, with they thought was their Nordic gods, and they thought they were getting all this information. They had their own Roswell situation in the Black Forest where they had a crash. And when that crash happened in 1938, they didn't even have the technology to reproduce any of it or back engineer any of it. So they had the Brill
Right.
Society, which was centered around that
Was that
whole
that
deal.
bell-shaped ship that you're talking about? Is that what it
Uh,
is?
it might have been. I'm not sure exactly what that craft looked like, but as long as you mention the bell shape, there's scripture that says that there would be one individual that would be able to uh, change the times and seasons, time, times, and a time and a half. Now, I did the look in the original Aramaic and the Hebrew, went back and looked in Daniel to the scriptures that said that, and it was literally that was meaning altering a sequential progression of time, that there would be some ability for him to interrupt that and change it for a time, present, times, future, and a dividing a time, past, present, and future. And so in my book, I show a lot of the evidence of every culture and society all throughout time who has met these white bearded masters, or Verakuhu, or whatever you wanted to call them, and they put an impact into their culture and society. They didn't drastically change everything, but they planted seeds of progression that would lead all towards them. The Hopi Indians, especially, they said that the white bearded spirit spirits came from the heavens and gave them harmony and nature, and gave them a lower level of technology to enhance their living, but it made them enamored by them, and they appreciated them, wrote about them, talked about them, and they actually drew their symbols of what that represented them. They put them on their teepees, and their symbol was the German Knight's Cross and the swastika.
Mhm.
And I don't think that was a coincidence.
Mhm.
And they were teaching them theosophy, which
Right.
was the very heart base of German Nazi ideology.
Right. I think people are unaware of that
Yeah.
swastika and all that was representation of their occult religious beliefs. You were going to say, Maverick?
Yeah, you mentioned the swastika. If that symbol's being used in North America, essentially, and there are these connections here, um, does that connect somehow with Hitler traveling to the Himalayas? Because that's a Hindu symbol as well.
Right.
That is oh, who is it? It's a weapon. It's shown as a weapon. I mean, if you go to India, it's painted on most of the taxis, but they add the dots
Hmm.
Right.
in the gaps as well. So there seems to be this connection, and I don't know if it goes back to the Vedas and the stories of the flying crafts and the wars that they had there,
Yes, it does.
and
Definitely.
yeah, good.
Yes, definitely. I mean, in the Bhagavad Gita, I mean, they got a poem there. And my God, it describes the after effects of an atomic explosion. And then in India, right in the area, there's remains of what looks like the remains of Hiroshima or Nagasaki. I mean, if it looks, I mean, it's to me, it's mind blowing. You've got all the evidence of a nuclear war that happened thousands of years ago. You've got it in poems. You got it in their historical, traditional, uh, various art forms of remembering this time of history, and you've got the archaeological, geological proof of it also. Then how can you deny it? People, they make up all kinds of crazy, like ignore the man behind the curtain. He's not there. Just baloney. It's there. You have to deal with it. The other thing is that what I've tried to explain to people now in my writings, in my writing my book, I considered rumors. Rumors are important. And the reason why is if biblically something is going to be covered up because it has to have a certain progression of that evil to be played out in order for it to ultimately fit in God's plan. So then rumors are all you're going to get. And if you do have evidence, people are not going to accept it. So don't get disappointed if everybody isn't, understanding Genesis 6 and what happened there and how it has a replay today. Most people are not going to accept it because this is a thing that's going to impact the world, and most of the world's going to be tricked by it. So on our part, we can't be discouraged on it. We got to be happy just to plant seeds, continue to be planting seeds, and it's all going to make sense in the latter of the last days, which is like right now.
So you mentioned rumor.
Mhm.
Going back to the words of Christ, just the idea of wars and rumors of wars, just the birth pangs. Is that including perhaps the concept of potential invasion? Are we talking? Is that concept included in that wars and rumors of wars, interstellar war?
Well, yeah. It's simply yes. uh, to break it down, I have it all in my book. I've got it all broken down. And what's interesting, um, I have an amazing relationship with Dr. Mike Heiser from going to the Ancient Days things. Well, I remember one time when I was giving a
He's like
talk
our
on
resident
the
scholar.
parallel dimensions. He was giving his talk on the divine council,
Mm.
and then Roswell didn't have a big enough airport to go directly to there, so we'd go to Albuquerque and have a 3 mile or a 3 hour drive back, down uh, to Roswell. So from Roswell, it ended up being just Dr. Mike. Well, this was before he was doctor. It was Mike Heiser and I. We're driving up. I
Ooh.
gave my speech. Oops. Somebody. Oh, it. Uh-oh. Now I can't hear you guys.
We're
Can you
not.
hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. You're good.
No, I can't hear. I can't hear the pastor.
Okay, it'll come in and out, but if you just keep going, and then it
There we go.
should come back.
Okay, no, there he is. Okay.
Yeah.
So, anyways, we had a very interesting conversation for 3 hours, exchanged a lot of things. I think we became pretty good friends. Now, I've been able to use him to check to make sure my Hebrew is in proper in order and everything.
Hmm.
But and I love Mike, but a lot of times he'll say, "Yeah, Jim, okay, that could fit, but," and then here comes the Billy Goat related to the but. But Jim, this, that, and the other. He's much more. Well, he has to be. In order to have a PhD, there's a certain box you have to stay into, and he doesn't. I mean, clandestinely, the guy's a free thinker. He loves the Lord. He does so much work for so many behind the scenes that people don't know and understand. That's what I admire most about not his intellect but his heart. He's really got a
Yeah.
heart for people. Um, but aside from that, he's somewhat. I almost look like it. Like I'm he's Scully and I'm Mulder. And he'll go, but Jim, but this, and he'll be more practical about things. And he says, yeah, but it could be that, but it could be this. So we have fun with it. I mean, I'm not offended by it. I appreciate his input. He's been so invaluable to me in many critical um, passages of scripture. Do I have my P's and Q's right? Yes, you do. But and that's good. That's good
Yeah,
for
indeed.
me.
I can attest to that. He's a great guy. I mean, even when after he released Unseen Realm, and then Reversing Hermon, and then Demons, and then Angels, and then the Stranger Things book, every time I invited him on the show, he was like, "I'm gonna make some time," and he comes on, no problem. So I've had him on at least 3 times, and I really appreciate that, because it's hard to get a hold of people that know what they're talking about and are willing to give you their time. So I
Right.
really appreciate it. So for sure, I can attest to that. But I was going to ask you, Jim. So you got into all this stuff, and you started talking about the abductions and freeing people. You said earlier from their abductions. I just want you to kind of expand on that, because we spoke. I want more of the same, I guess, because we spoke to this paranormal pastor. His name is Nathan Sieber, and he found that a lot of people were having very evil and demonic experiences with with aliens, and even the non-believers that were in these experiencer conferences were praying to Jesus, and they were getting delivered from these
Right.
experiences, and they were even further validate the Bible by saying, unfortunately, things will get better, but then things get worse after the deliverance. And that's also scriptural, where it says, a spirit will leave and bring back 7 other spirits, and if it's not filled, it will inhabit that place that it was inhabiting before, and things will get worse after that, which is also a biblical text. So it just kind of surprised me. So is that what you're experiencing with these people? Is that what you're helping people with? What are the kinds of experiences that you've bumped into with people that seem that are reaching out for help? Like, what is it? Why are they reaching out for help if these are supposed to be entities that are helping us out? These aliens.
Well, invariably, ultimately, they're liars, they're destroyers. They're not going to keep their promises to the victims, and they don't. And eventually, they start seeing and questioning, "Wow, if this is, why is it taking so long? If they're going to help me, how come I'm still feeling edgy? How come I'm feeling fearful? Um, how come they always come in the dark? How come they're always, whispering these things and not really, if they're already here to help us, how come they're not being open and sharing everything with everybody if they are superior?" So you know they start questioning the logic or the illogic of these entities because they're very illogical. Sin blinds even to entities that are superior to us. It's still a blinding thing. Satan is totally insane, I believe, and that's why he put Jesus on the cross. Had he been not a traitor, he would have understood God's plan. He didn't understand God's plan. He still doesn't understand it. So with me, I mean, how did I come to a place where I could actually terminate an abduction? I think that's the bottom line. Well, again, it's fighting the powers of darkness. Now, I back in 1976, we first started with 10 people uh, in a Bible study. I first, I guess, started my roots with, coming from the biker lifestyle. I started a Christian bike Bible study. Um, I started going to Central Bible College so I could get a formal education, at least at the basics or whatever, and mostly pastoral counseling and different things like that nature, that and hermeneutics, how to study the Bible, the right way to study it. I wanted all the basics so I actually would know what I was doing. Um, about a year and a half into my studies at Central Bible College, my little 10 people thing turned into 5 chapters in 2 states and one in Canada.
Wow.
So I guess I kind of knew what I was doing, and I
Mhm.
had to quit college so I could take care of everything. I was doing one service in Detroit, one in Pontiac, Michigan, which is a suburb just not very far away. So I could do a morning service place one place and an evening service at the other place. So I had to let go. But the thing is, dealing and working with the biker lifestyle, you have multiple cross addictions, and so what I started learning at a very early time in my ministry life was what's called theophostic healing. Don't confuse it with theosophy. It has nothing to do with theosophy. Theophostic healing is inner healing. This is the key to everything on deliverance, on any kind of unwanted paranormal problems that are in your life. It comes down to where they have created hurts, trauma in your life. And at time during that trauma, they'll whisper something that you think was in your mind. You'll go, if you don't want this to happen again, then you're going to have to fill in the blank. It's always something anti biblical, always something that's destructive, always something that's negative. It's like setting a default on a computer. This is how you're going to basically want to react to a similar situation that they created and set up to control you. So in theophostic healing, what we do is we treat emotions as if they're entities, and we just simply work with them, not hypnosis or anything like that, but we have them go back in prayer and say, okay, we are going to believe God to know what you need first to be healed and to be delivered. So I pray in the spirit, and then I with the person, and then I wait. Now they don't have to be filled with the spirit. I mean, they can think I'm nuts. If they're not familiar with it, I kind of let them know so that they won't think I'm going having a epileptic fit or something. And I explain it to them. So then I walk them through, and then I say, now we're going to be quiet before God. Whatever first comes to your thought, a flash memory of an event or a feeling, a person, an image, whatever it might be, share that with me, and then we'll go from there. So that's the kind of way that I work. It's very easy, even a child can understand it. And that's what's neat about theophostic healing. It is when God is going to deliver us from something deep and emotional, he makes it so simple a child can understand it. And and so what I do is rather simple. It's not anything complicated. Once a person's been walked through it, they can probably start helping other people the same way. Now, being that I had some formal college in word associations and different things like that, it helps to make it a little easier. But still, it's all about Jesus, not about me. I just know how to pray a person through to get their emotions healed. Once the emotions are healed, once I have, and I don't cast anything out of anyone. If something needs to be cast out, I have the person themselves cast it out themselves. This gives them a whole new enhancement of their own walk with the Lord. God's no
Mm,
respect for people. And I don't want people's eyes on me saying, oh, Jim, he did this and he did that and he just got every. No, I didn't. It was Jesus.
mm,
But you're going to do it and I'm going to show you how to do it. So this thing, regret, has bound you up and robbed you and taken you because you've regretted not doing things. But you know what? You did the right thing. It was a good thing you didn't. Regret's trying to make you want the things that it wants to destroy you with. And you have been victorious over all this. And he has been beating you up, saying, you should have done this, you should have done that, you got that wrong, you got this wrong. Oh, you're just doing this for your own ego or whatever. It's all lies. So we find scripture in opposition to that. And I have them quote that. And then I have them address regret, saying, I don't agree with you. I'm tired of your lies. I want you out of my mind, my quit messing with my mind, quit vexing my spirit, and get out of my body now in Jesus' name. When they do that themselves, I'm not kidding you. There's a transformation.
Mm.
There's something that you can see in their countenance right away, and they're set free. And that door is shut. They can't come back in. I don't know whether you call it, you want to call it an alien or a mantis type alien or the craziest thing in the world.
An insectoline.
Evil is still evil. They're
Right.
still whatever form. It doesn't matter.
Right.
It's all the same enemy, and they have no power over any of us unless we give it to them. And as
Now,
long
when
as we fall into their lies, they own us.
now, Jim, you mentioned before that part of this is treating those emotions like entities. Is that so? The verse that I could think of off the top of my head was, "The Lord has not given us a spirit of fear,
Yes,
but of
but it's
boldness." So it's that sort of a concept where you're treating
exactly,
them that way. Okay.
exactly. And this is some scriptures are misconceived by where we take it. When Paul was writing, I think to Timothy, um, he was saying to study to show yourself approved of God. Um, to see how does it say? Study to show yourself approved to God, a workman that needeth not be ashamed. Now, when you look up the word ashamed in the Greek, when you look up the word study, you get a whole different mechanics of what's going on. Don't we usually, when we hear that and what we're taught, okay, you've got to memorize his word, you got to know his word, and by doing it, you'll have an answer for the hope that's within you. So have that answer, or you're going to feel ashamed because you didn't have the answer.
Right.
But when you look at those two words, study means to be intimate with him. So there's the logos word, but there's the rhema.
Right.
So you take logos, you believe in the logos, you proclaim the logos, but you wait for the rhema, a personal application for you, for that word, for you individually.
Yeah.
When you get that, that gives you the word ashamed doesn't mean to be shamed. It means to be without hope, having confidence, and having boldness. Now, man, that's a whole different thing.
Indeed. Indeed, it
When
is.
when we're studying, we have a confidence in God to stand our ground if nothing is changing.
Right.
We have a boldness to attack the enemy when he's trying to attack us. And we have a confidence that God's love and provision is always going to see us through no matter what is going on.
Right.
How? By praise and thanksgiving. We don't start whining and fussing over, well, why is this happening and how come you didn't do this in my life? And how come it's like, Lord, you are in control of everything. I just praise you and thank you now, Jesus, that you are in control. You have a plan. I may not understand it, but Lord, help me to understand it. Help me to fit into conformity. And I'm just going to trust and praise and believe in you. We keep up that kind of a day-to-day relationship, and tomorrow's always going to take care of itself.
Indeed. And I just want to take a step back. I'm into that. I 100% agree. But for the people that might be listening that might be an experiencer or an
Hmm.
abductee, the key thing that I didn't mention in the episode with Paranormal Pastor was that the people that stopped completely experiencing the abductions, uh, they received the truth of Christ in their heart. They received the truth
Yes.
of Christ, of the gospel in their heart and the authority therein. And then this phenomenon of alien abductions and experiences stopped. Is that correct?
Yes.
I just want to make
Yes.
that very
No,
clear
no,
because a lot of people on the last episode, they listened to these things and they heard that the name of Jesus can deliver them, but it got worse. But I want them to know that it could completely stop, and then they can find peace in Christ, and it really shows the truth of the lie that these entities tell, that they always demystify or take away the divinity of Christ when you speak to them, right? They always say, well, Jesus is not really God. He's not really King of Kings. He's just a good,
right.
they speak good of him in a sense. They kind of like make it sound good. Like, oh, he was a good teacher. He was a great example of a man, but not who you think he is, Christian. But yet again, then this comes around, their experiences, and then they don't respond well when they use the name of Jesus, and then all of these bad experiences and abductions stop. So that's really telling. I want people to understand that.
Yes. Now I have one situation. This was a Christian. Some people say, well, Christians can't get abducted. Oh yeah, they can. Oh yes.
Oh.
Don't think they can't. You can leave doors open.
Uh-oh.
Now here, because I can't mention the names or even the location. This is somebody that's pretty well known, doesn't want to be known.
Okay.
He and his wife were involved in deliverances. They were full gospel. They understood, all the gifts and everything. And they themselves were used in a deliverance type ministry. And the wife found herself being in the middle of being abducted by the mantis type. And those, they're the meanest. They're the nastiest ones. And she right away rebuked it in the name of Jesus. They left. She did everything right, and it stopped. But she kept thinking, "Oh my God, what? I must have left the door open. What did I do, Lord? How did this happen?" Well, she went to her husband and said, "I don't understand what is happening." He said he was started fasting and praying, and the Lord showed him Zechariah, fourth chapter, and then the Lord told him, "Go to this July 4th. Go to Roswell. There'll be somebody there that can explain it to you." That somebody was me.
Mm.
and, and the topic was Zechariah, fourth chapter, and the Roswell incident. And I was showing how that is it fits right in there. It's called a rule of duplicity. Okay, there was a situation that happened in the time of the prophet's own time, but it had a replay in the end times, and I was showing how that was fitting. That was my whole thing. I met the pastor. He told me what had gone on. I told him that I would like to someday be able to talk to both, you and your wife. I think I can have some answers for you that'll, totally finish this off for you. Now, long story short, the very next year, the Stevensville lights phenomena happened, and he's in that area, and he knew some of the people personally. So he gave me a call, said, "Jim, you want to come down? I'll help you with gas or whatever, and put you up at my place, but come on down. I think we can get an interview with all the key people, and we can see what's going on." And I said, "Good, and then I can work with you and your wife. That'll be awesome." So I did. They got set free. But what happened? The door that was open. Oh God, this is so. Now this man was such a kind, loving husband, awesome man. Went to all that lengths, just for his wife to find out, what's going on. Take a trip all the way to Roswell to meet me. And before they got married, she had been raped, and she never told her husband, and she felt guilty for that.
Mm.
And the fear was totally illogical. I mean, and so when we found that out, I said, you need to tell him right now, please.
Mm.
Let's just get everybody else out in the room, just the three of us. I want you to be able to tell him, and I'll leave too if you want me to. And she said, no, that'll be all right. So she told him. He just went over there and hugged her and says, "That doesn't mean anything to me. You should know that." And she says,
Right.
"I'm sorry. I do, I guess, but you know how the enemy can, cause this. I was just afraid to tell you. I was ashamed that I never told you in the first place." Yet that was the simple little stupid door like that. Man, once they close that door, they have never had any problems. A new sense of freedom for her and also for him. I mean, they just had a deeper appreciation for each other and just gave God all the glory.
Now,
Um,
this is reminding me of like what you see in horror movies where people experience paranormal activity
yes,
based on emotional distress. And these entities are intentionally attacking said family member or whoever it is emotionally in order to elevate the experience and open the door even more so. So yet
exactly.
another connection where, I mean, me personally, that's actually what was happening in our household where we practiced witchcraft, which led to paranormal activity, which led to my mother and father being alcoholics, which led to fights, which led to domestic abuse, which led to my sisters and I being depressed, led to two of my sisters trying to commit suicide. It led to even more vivid paranormal activity. I mean, it was just like an escalation. And you can see that every single time there was an emotional drive, opening up another door after another, and it was getting worse and worse over time. So all of this is just making more sense.
It does. You got to think of them almost like they're like spiritual vampires. They feed off that energy. That's why even in the horrendous thing of the child sacrifices and everything that's going on, that thank God certain people are putting a stop to it.
Right.
In that they and it's hard for me even to talk about it, but before they sacrifice them, they bring them to a point of terror because the adrenaline goes through their body and it energizes them. Wilhelm Reich, who was probably one of the geniuses in theoretical physics, he had this kind of, I think it was basically a Buddhist belief that that sodomy of a youth, takes away their virility and puts it into you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and yet in physics, he understood what he called, he had a name for it, but it was actually, it was just the physics of anti-gravity electromagnetic things. He was working on the project with Einstein was an advisor, Nikola Tesla was an advisor. That was Project Rainbow. We know it as the USS Eldridge, which we know, things kind of went hinky with that. But still, he had a physics that he knew, that was aware of these things. So in that, all these things are intricate. They intertwine with each other, that of basic scientific principles that are found biologically within us that can be connected to the mechanical in the same way. That's why we're growing more and more into the transhumanism thing, because as we see how we can interface the two together, now we can be Jim Wilhemsen 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
No, thank you. Not me. You keep your little nanobots out of my vaccinations, and I won't take them because.
Come on, Jim. I want to see you in a nice biosuit, bro. That'd be great. I just want to. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, I was gonna say going back to like some of the emotional stuff and the connection there and all that stuff. I just feel like there's more there that we might be missing. There seems to be a truth to. But people these days, especially because people say stuff they don't even know what they're talking about, but they're like, "Oh, your vibe, bro. I'm not feeling your vibe, your energy, man." All this stuff. There seems to be an actual physical, scientific truth to that. There's a reality to that for sure, because it definitely affects our emotions. Definitely affect us way deeper than we think. We just think that they're kind of like superficial. They're just whatever. They might affect our mind or how we feel for the day. But we forget that we are both physical and created by God, physical and spiritual beings as humans. And so we were made to connect to both worlds. And these are seems to be the tools or the avenues that God was intending to use for us to connect to him, but they're being usurped by evil forces or these fallen entities.
Exactly. Just like the three of us, I can see you eye to eye, face to face. I can read your body language. I can see your face. And the thing is, as we're sitting here talking about the Lord, I can see times when you just light up. And that's Jesus, man. That's not you. That's Jesus. So, the Spirit bears witness with our spirit that we are the sons of God. Well, the Spirit bears witness to one another. Sometimes you can just walk in a room. This guy knows the Lord. Why? Because you can read it all over his face, man.
Yeah, I feel it at work all the time. I'm like, yeah, he's just walking. And I'm like, yeah, he's a Christian. I can see it.
Yeah, and that's so cool. And that is, and there's other times when you can walk in a room. Whoa, wait a minute. I actually had the Lord tell me one time, no, don't talk to him. No, leave it alone.
Mm-hmm.
And I have knowingly come in contact with non-human entities at least 3 or 4 times in my life.
Really?
One overturned an entire Bible study I had against me. I mean, it's just that was crazy. But and that
Hmm.
person, I tried working with them with the apostate healing, and you know what the one thing that she could not do or say,
Uh,
Jesus Christ is Lord.
mm.
She couldn't, and I was thinking it was because she was wounded or from this other thing, and I'm trying to give her the benefit of the doubt, and I'm realizing afterwards, oh my God, that woman wasn't even, you know,
A woman.
I should have all kinds of questions about the inner earth. Well, what did it look like? I didn't. I'm glad I didn't. But
Yeah.
uh, I had another time when I was just coming back to the Lord, when I was just starting to write my book. Well, no, that's what led me to write my book. I met this woman. She said she was a Christian. It was from a Christian dating thing. Um, she was too good to be true. And usually, when it's too good to be true, it usually isn't. And I fell into a situation with her that wasn't good. I caught her one night doing this over my eye. What the heck are you doing? I'm rearranging your aura. I said, no, no, no. You don't need to be
Oh, that's
rearranging
it.
your aura for me at all, man.
Put that back.
I said, you said you were a Christian and you're doing all this crazy stuff. It's like, I'm out of here. Bye. See you later. And
Gosh.
but she was
Rearranging your aura, man.
she was always testing me on and I knew she wasn't. I didn't know why she was doing it. She was always testing me on little like intelligent IQ tests and logic and reasoning and doing all this stuff and I'm going why are you doing this? And she says, oh, you're helping me out bigger more than you ever realize. You're really helping me out. And she would always call me monkey boy. And I always thought it was because I got a hairy back. I'm just kind
Mm.
of hairy guy, and I used to get teased about it sometimes.
That's some
But
Nordic blood.
yeah, well, no, you know what I realize now why she called me monkey boy, because in their belief system, if you have O negative blood, it proves that you are a star child, or you're directly related to the Uberman. If
Oh.
you don't, which I had O positive blood, then I'm a monkey boy.
Is that the RH negative?
Yeah, that's
That
the
that yeah,
from the rhesus
that's a
monkey.
trend.
Now it's this is so stupid. They build up a whole evolutionary thing based on the fact that there is a commonality between Rh negative and positive blood of the rhesus monkey. There is a kind of a genetic connection to those with positive blood. It has nothing to do with the fact that we evolved from them or anything. That's stupid. But it's just kind of like cows and pigs also have a genetic tie to human beings where we can grow all kinds of stuff in a pig, human organs, and they grow and then we can harvest them. And now they're thinking about doing that more and more often. Um, a cow, in case of emergency, their blood can be used for all types of human blood and in a blood transfusion. Now, where did that come from? We
Right.
just have some genetic links. It doesn't mean but you could go deeper on that.
I mean, on a
Cows used as a covering of
right.
sin.
On a, uh I was just gonna say on a side subject, it reminded me when you brought up the whole pig thing, and I just thought of this right now. In ancient times, if you wanted to defile the body, you'd sacrifice a pig in the temple, and
Yes.
us being the temple of God, and then taking in some pig like clone liver or whatever. I just feel like it's almost like defiling our bodies with a pig. You know what I'm saying? Because we are the temple in a sense. So I don't know. I just feel weird about that.
In one of the Talmuds, and I don't know which one, whether it was the Babylonian or whether it was the um, what was the other ones, or the ones written in Jerusalem, the Talmud. There is an oral tradition among the Jews that there was a time, and we're talking probably Genesis 6 time, uh, where they believed that men or humans were turned into pigs.
Mm.
So, I mean, and what I'm saying is there's a text, a scripture in Genesis 6 that says, for all of life has been corrupted in its way. When you
Mm.
look at that in the Hebrew, corrupted in its way, it means its normal genetic path line has been sidetracked.
Right.
That's where you get the whole transhumanism, the harpies, the minotaur. All these things weren't mythical creatures; they were real. They were part of the genetic manipulation that was going on before the flood, which would reoccur at the end times. So, um, these things are just, it's amazing. If you dig deeper, you can find more and more connections to a bigger picture on all of the different things.
Right.
Um,
Not
Just like the whole abduction thing. What the Lord told me was towards the very end, abductions would cease. And guess what? I have not had any new cases. I've had cases that are connected to genetics, going back in family lines. I have no new cases of abductions. They're beyond that point now. They don't need to take anybody because they got everything they need. Now they're getting ready for the invasion. Or what I would say the invasion is the rapture. They're going to have their own rapture. When
mm,
Jesus said, "Don't go into the secret place, secret chambers. Don't go out into the desert when they say to go." Well, the indication is that sometime, someday in the future, they're going to be told to go out into the desert, to go out to these certain grid point lines and wait for us because we're coming to get you.
probably
And that's
spiritual ley
exactly,
lines, if I had to guess.
Probably
yes,
Sedona.
absolutely. Yeah, well, they had one guy who was going to jump off one of the cliffs off of Sedona on
Hmm.
September 23rd.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't know
always
if it
that
was
September. Yeah,
2011 or something like that.
right,
At the end of the Mayan calendar. That's,
right.
so that was
12.
2012,
2012.
Yeah,
2012.
2012.
So last I heard, he didn't do it. I don't know. He probably found some way to back out of that one. As the days got closer, he goes, "Whoa, wait a minute! I
Now,
don't think I want to really do this."
yeah, we don't have a lot of time, and I want to maybe just
Yeah,
brush on this a little bit, and then we can have you back for a part two and get into other things. But a while back, I had a guest on named Ali Sadiatan. I don't know if you know who he is, but he has
no,
a production company called Think Again Productions, and he did pretty much the first documentary ever before there was YouTube, and put it like on Google, whatever it was or something, about it was called UFO Angels and Gods, and
hmm,
he was the creator of that, and he brought something to the forefront that I think a lot of Christians never considered. And we talked about it on the show, but it kind of ties in with certain things that you talk about in your book. So I want to bring it up. His UFO experience was him and his father both had one, and his was a little different. Both his and his father was a little different in that instead of the UFO floating around in the sky and then going and getting lost into the sky, these ones would spin faster and bury themselves into the earth and go into the earth. One of them went into the water and then disappeared in the water. And he saw that first, then went over to the Middle East. He's a Middle Eastern. Was talking to his dad about it and how he felt it was something biblical, and that there was like an oncoming situation where aliens were going to be more important. The father didn't believe him. And as they were driving from one city to another, literally him and his mom, the mom saw it in the distance in the desert. They saw a similar disc like craft, and they saw like a tube or something kind of pop out from underneath, and that thing went on top of the tube, and it literally just went into the sand and disappeared. And so what's going on there? I mean, have you heard of technology of UFOs instead of leaving, going into the ground like that? Like, what's going on with that?
absolutely. In 1990, I want to say eight, I think it was, at MIT, they had a conference, and they made a book with all the notes on it from the conference. I've got it. I don't know if you can even get it anymore. I paid $45 for it probably almost 20 years ago. Now I can't imagine what it's probably $150 or so. But it was all of the compilations of their conclusions. They brought everybody that was who into the medical field, psychological field, and abductees and abductions and counselors and secular people from MUFON. I mean, anybody that was even remotely directly related to that kind of idea, they brought them all together as a think tank and poured into everything that was common, everything that was maybe uncommon. They just went through everything. It was very interesting in their conclusions because they said that whenever there was a transition from an abduction going into a smaller craft to a larger craft, none of them were ever seen taken into outer space and entering into an alien world. None of them were ever seen um, going anywhere up in the air. They all went into the ocean or into a river or a lake underground. They would go into a cave and they would end up in a place underground. Some of them were in a sparse, kind of a desolated area. Others, it was almost like an Eden-like area, just lush, growth and everything and life, but all of them, every transition went inside the earth, not out in space. Now, to me, that's, I keep it very simple. You can tell everybody, where's hell? And they point down in the earth. Okay, well, you know what? It's literal, physical, real place that you could go visit. I don't want to go visit, but, now, actually, my Bible says that I'm entitled to go in there. I can kick the gates in and go in there and take back what the devil is. Now, I'm not saying that dead people that are in there, but whatever's down there, some of it doesn't belong there. And I think this is where it's a dimensional thing. We're finding out now that it's not only traveling time and space, but now dimension. This is where CERN comes in, uh, and CERN has an interesting history too. Its exact location is exactly in ancient Romans times. CERN is right smack dab in the middle of the temple to Apollo. Apollyon. Apollyon.
Of course.
Man, look the Bible. Look, something Apollyon comes out of inside the earth to the outside of the earth. What is CERN doing? They're screwing around with dimension, and they're doing things. They think they're bringing in the multiverse is swept everything anymore. You can't see a DC comic, you can't see a Marvel comic, you can't see. I can't even go to the travel show now without seeing something about interdimensional. I mean, my God, it's in everything. They're conditioning us to get us used to the idea of a multiverse. Now, I agree, there's a multiverse, but it's a multiverse of what? Layers of hell. Command. Now, the whole basic theory of a multiverse is that for every individual that makes a decision or doesn't make a decision, it creates like a mini little universe based on that thing. So you're talking about almost an eternal kind of a situation. But is it, there's only one you, there's only one me. We're stuck here. Bible shows us how we got stuck here, why we got stuck here, and how to get back out. We can cross the bridge. That bridge is a cross. What Jesus provided for us. But getting conditioned to think that there's maybe 25,000 bad yous and 50 million good yous on other dimensional planes. So, hey, let's, we can travel these things, but let's pick and mix and match and do all these kind of interesting. No, there's only one place that we're stuck in, and there's only one you, and we're stuck here. But we're shown how we can get unstuck here. But we're also warned that there's going to be a day when there's going to be a great tribulation and agitation. When you go back into the Greek and look at it from a 21st century perspective, oh my God, they're not talking about the inconsistencies of governments and the temporal things here. They're talking about people that are screwing around with time, space, and dimension. And guess what? We're doing that very thing.
And I don't think people realize, just like you said, these institutions like CERN are opening up places in ritualistic areas. Just like you said, NASA is launching on ritualistic days. The names of their rockets, Apollo, Gemini, all these things are ritualistic. The days of our week, the months of our year are, named after gods. I mean, I live in Southern California. I'm close to Anaheim, which is a realm, in the whole Nordic religion, so
one of the 9 realms. Yeah,
it's one of the 9 realms, and I have so many streets and cities named after goddesses, Greek goddesses, and we're surrounded by all of this all the time. And people are completely unaware that all of these quote unquote scientific explorations are always happening in this ritualistic fashion. It's not even a conspiracy. It's like, it's so ridiculous to say it's a conspiracy because it just happens time and time again. When they reopened that new CERN thing a few years back, they did a Celtic ritualistic pagan thing where they just were conjuring up nature gods and spirits, and it's like, come on, like, what do we got to do to say, like, I told you so kind of thing? We got the UN opening up in Mount Hermon. Come on, like, they have a base there in Mount. I mean, goodness, like, and they're trying to start a one world order. I mean, what do I got to do here? What to make you guys believe me? I don't understand here. Like, at this point, it's like the cognitive dissonance makes me go crazy a little bit.
Well, everything's finally being completed right in front of us. I mean, the alliances now between like Turkey, Iran, um, Russia, maybe not so. There's an interesting story even in that one. I don't know if you're familiar with Steve Cocolenti of what is his he's the Asian guy that lives in Australia, very pro American.
No.
In a 5 minute session, he makes this bold proclamation, and I think when you can see that the Bible will interpret itself by itself, I think he proved that we've always been taught that the Ezekiel 38 war included Russia. In 5 minutes, he proved that that's not even biblical sound.
Mm.
Russia
Yeah.
didn't have anything to do with it. It blew my mind. If it was anybody else, and I've been following him for about 10 years now, probably one of the most accurate prophetic people that I know in the 20th century, other than David Wilkerson. And I'll tell you, he was right on with that. I just, wow. I mean, sometimes it's hard when you've been traditionally taught a certain idea and then somebody shatters it in a few seconds. It doesn't bother me, though. If they can prove it by the word of God, I'm good to go, man. I'm
Right.
not going to argue with that. So,
Yeah, and I've been seeing more and more people are sort of waking up from their sort of Hal Lindsey hangover in regards to eschatology and being more open to
right,
more than just that one timeline map that everybody has and it's
right,
locked in and we all know. And I feel like that Ezekiel 38, Russia, and you've got you know the EU is the 10 nation all
right.
those sort of things that were laid down. And I feel like there's a lot of breaking up of that now. More and more, I talk with people say, I used to believe that, but I've been reading some more just in scripture, and I just don't know if that's true anymore. I've been hearing more and more of that, just kind of calling it into doubt. So, yeah, this could be a really interesting next few years.
Oh, I think it will be. I started boldly proclaiming because the Lord showed me this back in 1996 when I was fasting and praying and writing my book. He showed me an alien rapture, that there was going to be one, and it was going to be very deceptive. But what he showed me, it's crazy. He showed me people that were going to certain locations to be beamed up, and they were almost like in a trance. And I'm sitting there trying to wake them up, and I'm waking up. I'm hearing a narrative voice behind me saying, "Tell them, tell them they're going to be eaten. They're not going to be taken to any place of refuge. They're going to be eaten." Now I thought that was crazy. I remember a Twilight Zone episode, the cannabis, or what do they call it? It's a cookbook.
I remember that. It's a cookbook. That was
But
one of the best
oh my gosh, did
punchlines.
I have too pizza last night or something? Or what is, Lord, is this dream really from you? And I shared it even as early as 1996. Now then I was laughed at and thought, even the people that knew me as the Christian biker guy that founded the first, motorcycle ministry, I had a lot of respect from a lot of people from that. But then I start talking about, sauces coming down and grabbing people and eating them. Um, I was the biggest kook in the world. Oh my gosh, that Wilhemsen, he's flipped out. He's some kind of new age nutcase now, and and it took time for history to catch up. But now there are so many people dreaming dreams of this very thing. It's not something that people are laughing at anymore. It's like, oh my gosh, it's kind of become mainstream. Even some of the things that I talked about years ago, now you guys are talking about it. And some of you have gotten more enhanced stuff than what I've got. I am not threatened by that. I'm encouraged. I never thought I'd live to see the day when, like, the Fall Brothers made that documentary that's pretty much gone mainstream now, about a
Yeah.
hollow. I mean, it's awesome. I
Mm.
never thought I'd live to see the day when this stuff started becoming normal. But you know what? I guess it's going to have to someday. We're going to be
Jim,
walking in opposition to it.
Mhm.
did you ever see that new that new movie that came out recently, King Kong versus Godzilla?
I did. Oh my gosh, they had that so accurate. I mean, it's like I'm sitting there dumbfounded. Like, wow. I mean, even the transitional part of gravity and everything. It's like, man, that wasn't by accident. Somebody's letting us know. Yeah, we've been there. We know.
Yeah, no, those movies, those especially those movies as of late, I feel like they're really bringing forth some information. I mean, that's kind of part of what we do on the show. that we often talk about how movies reveal some sort of truth in plain sight, and that's kind of part of the occult belief. We want to put this stuff in plain sight, and that way we have no karmic blowback for all of our sins that we're committing and all that good stuff. But that's something that it encourages me, because I've seen uh, believers in podcast and non-believers that are starting podcasts that are about exposing the occult, which is fascinating to me.
Yes.
And I personally went on one myself. It's called the Occult Rejects. They invited me on, and I've kind of been on a unofficial Michael Heiser book tour, and I've been just talking about Michael Heiser on all kinds of podcasts and showing him what book it is, like at least 3 or 4 podcasts already. And I'm mentioning the Book of Demons and the book Unseen Realm and Reversing Hermon. And it's just so relevant right now, especially because they get into the symbolism. And of course, I touch on where the symbolism came from. And it's all these fallen entities, all this biblical history, that this is an ancient war, a cosmic geographical war that we're in the midst of, right? And I just bring that to light in these other podcasts that I've been on, because goodness, it's just been so relevant, and it's like you said, it's very inspiring, and it kind of brings you hope. You're like, all right, God's working, doing His thing, and this, even though I'm little old Fire Theft Radio, we're reaching other countries and things like that, and I'm just like, well, God's spreading the fire, as we like to say on this show, wherever He wants it to spread, and that's how we go. And even though I can't speak that well,
This Halloween, I will be in London, England, talking about the Nazi connection to UFOs, aliens, and the abductions and the technology and everything. And it's to people that they're a mixed bag. There's some that are occultists, there's some that are New Agers, and some that are, I think they're Christians. I'm not sure yet, but I know all of them are fascinated by what the Bible has to say about all of the things that they've been studying for years.
Mm-hmm.
So this is quite an opportunity. And as the doors open, there's other people that have been following me a long time that are coming from Europe to the seminar, and this has been doors are opening. There are already some people that are inviting me to go speak in Asia, in Europe, in several of different European countries. I mean, it's like this is a new door open for me that I I knew it was going to happen someday, but I didn't know when. And now, being that I do believe we're at the end of the end, well, I guess it's going to be to now, not later.
Yeah. Well,
It's exciting.
if you are ever again in Roswell, Nevada, or California, let me know, man. I'd like to go over there and join you and interview some folks and make an episode out of it, or anything, something like that. I think I was actually going to go to something that you were going to be in with Heiser. We ended up not making it, but that was like 6-7 years ago, I think, because that's when we started the show. And I did get to meet Heiser when he first released Unseen Realm, but after that, I was trying to catch him in different places and things like that. So, but Maverick or Nicolai, before we land this plane, do you have anything else you want to ask him before we kind of wrap this up for today?
I had a lot of things I want to talk about as far as Hollow Earth and some of those connections there and how these things kind of line up. It feels like, talking about King Kong and how the Hollow Earth is presented. It feels like there's a lot more that's opening up there. And I think that would probably be a really fun discussion to have sort of later on.
Right.
Maybe we'll have to do a part 2 to really delve into that and do it appropriately. But real quick, have you had any interaction with or seen anything with Billy Carson?
No, I hate to say I'm not even familiar with the name.
I only discovered him really a couple weeks ago, but he seems to be sort of like the Black David Icke.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. You're talking about you're talking about the Forbidden Knowledge guy.
Yes.
Yeah, he's on
Knowledge is his channel.
I have commented on his channel on Instagram and directed people towards Heiser material because a lot of his claims will be easily debunked. But go ahead, open that up.
Well, he brings up and just kind of almost in passing, we've got colonies on the moon, we got colonies on Mars. I know that that's a topic that gets brought up in connection with advanced technologies. What are your thoughts on
Oh, you don't want to know,
that?
do you?
Well, if it's for another episode, let's do that. But I mean,
I have a friend, and I can't say too much about him, but he contacted me. I didn't contact him. Um, there is a secret space program. We have a colony on Mars. It's been for a long time. The dark side of the moon, Iron Sky 1 and 2 has more truth about what's going on there. Yes, there's a new Germania on the other dark side of the moon.
You mean Matt Damon was successful?
Well, I don't know whether Matt was, but yeah, that was a good move. I am a sci-fi nut. There is no sci-fi movie I think that I have about 4,000 videos in my library.
Goodness.
You're your own blockbuster.
I'm almost working on having almost every sci-fi on anything on space, time, and dimension. Yeah, I inherited some of it from my uncle. He was a millionaire. I never even knew he was. He always wore Carhartts all the time and everything, and you wouldn't know it. But he had a house and he had a basement that was bigger than my entire house, filled with his movie studio, 3D. A lot of them are in 3D, and I'm trying to bring back 3D because it's really cool stuff. But anyways, not only Mars and the moon, but outposts on Io and Titan. They're two gas giants that are always associated with Chronos, with time travel, with space travel,
right?
In the sun. And there's a reason why we've never built anything bigger or better than the shuttlecraft, which have ceramic covering, because we don't need anything more than that. But now, since Trump became president, he started putting teeth into what Clinton had first started, was the United States Space Force. There was no Space Force. Now there is. Trump has built some that are like on steroids. They're like 5-6 times bigger than any of the shuttlecraft that we normally have. And I understood why. Oh,
he would.
The thing is, they have on this one, they'll have a pilot, co-pilot, and a navigator. And they have one room for about 7 to 9 people. Do you know in special ops? Now, I was in special forces in the U.S. Army, so I'm kind of familiar with that. I didn't do all the cool stuff that you see in the movies. I was in the rear and gear because I was in missiles, so I was in artillery.
Okay.
But I heard and knew all about what was going on. A typical special ops unit is going to be about 7 to 9 people. So here we got this other room that is that. Then we got another room, and it's just empty with shackles on the seats for prisoners. Yeah. And what I'm excited about, guess where they desired the greatest. They want to have their world headquarters on part of Selfridge Air Force Base, which is just 4 miles down from my museum that I live in here on Gratiot Road. That would, what a God thing that would be. Man,
that'd be fun.
Well,
excited. Yeah.
It definitely sounds like we got to get you back on for another hour and a half and open some stuff up. Some can of worms we got to look into for sure.
I like can of worms.
Yes, let's do it. So you mentioned you have a museum that's tied with your book, Beyond Science Fiction Museum. Please let the folks know where they can find your material, and we will kind of land this plane after that.
All right. I'm at 28349 Gratiot Avenue in Roseville, Michigan. Gratiot Avenue is like the 5-6 lane main artery going right down to downtown to on Jefferson to Hart Plaza. I do have a video on Hart Plaza too. That's just really a really strange place. Interesting. It's set up like an Egyptian temple. Every icon and edifice there is actually a functional part of technology that's going to be used someday. Not a good thing.
Yeah. That makes me want to ask you about the pyramids now. But let's move. Let's move on. Let's move on.
Which ones? The ones that are appearing over the Antarctic?
Don't even get me started, Jim.
Base 211. Yeah. Okay. Interesting stuff. you know what's amazing is it's all interconnected. And I think the ministry that God has given me, He's just prepared me to have an answer for almost all this stuff where maybe in the past there's never been an answer. But you know, I've been doing this stuff almost a half a century. I guess I should have a good handle on it by now. And recently, people have contacted me that I never knew existed, or they're telling me things that I knew existed because I saw them in the scriptures, but I never could back it up in reality. And that's what they've been able to do for me. There's nothing I can do about it. But now I did go on an expedition, and maybe this is what you're thinking about. And that was it was going to be with um, Dave Flynn. Of course, he never lived long enough to do it. I believe he was taken out. I know he was taken out. Um, he was well known. I was still under the radar, and that's probably why the only reason that we were starting to work on a project together, and it never came to fruition and everything. Now, this 4th of July, I'm planning on driving out to Roswell, and I have a friend. He wants to drive out, and then I got to fly back because I got something in my own ministry on the 5th that I got to be back for. So I can be there on the 3rd and 4th, and then boom, I'm gone. But when I saw how much the hotel rates were for 2 days, $1,300,
Oh,
and
what?
That's madness.
that's not even a 4-star hotel.
That's my
Next to
Cancun
a
trip.
bag.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people, or the fact is, I know the shady spots in Roswell, so I can just sleep in my car and, kind of sort of survive.
Right. Right.
Maybe a battery operated fan will keep me from.
What about your book? Where can people find your book?
The best deal, unless you're outside of continental United States, you can get it through Amazon. They want $25 for the darn thing. I sell it through my own website. I sell it for $15, which includes postal and everything, because I had it published on my own because I do own the copyright. So I've still got about 500 books left from 1,000. So there's enough around for
Indeed.
them. That's a steal.
That's great. Cool. Sounds great. Well, before I landed, is there anything else, any final words you'd like to say, Jim, before we move on?
Just so you know, the way I approach all of this, I'm not the one that kind of says that, hey, God told me this, you got to listen. Because I think all of us are basically, when somebody tells you that, what's the first thing you're going to do? Not listening. You're going to make me tell me, no, I don't need to do that. And I don't think I need to. I am happy with just planting a seed. The way I approach everybody is, look, you don't have to believe in any of this. I'm trying to provide you with an alternate way of seeing things that might be a possibility. Put it in the back of your mind. If I'm right, you have some substance to fall back on and some reference biblically of what might be happening. And if I'm wrong, all I've asked you to do was to spend some time and to consider something. I haven't sold you my special made tinfoil hat so the aliens can't read your mind. I didn't require your firstborn or anything else, just a little time to consider.
Right.
And I'm good with that, because I believe that if these things are really truly what God told me, He's going to back me up. And if they aren't, I don't want to be a part of it. And so one time, somebody said, well, you're just trying to get yourself out of a bind. You better believe it. I really believe that part was, when you add or take away, then God's going to add or take away. I kind of think it's not only for the book of Revelation, I think it's for A to Z, from Genesis to Revelation. So we need to take it very seriously and very cautiously. So I think that's what I'm trying to do. So I don't have the hard sell approach. I try to leave it very comfortable and inviting for everybody to consider. In politics and theology set aside, I just want to plant a seed for somebody to consider a different way of looking at things.
Oh, that's great. Amen to that. And I got to say, my 15-year-old is driving me crazy. So if you were going to ask for a firstborn, I'd probably give him to you, but I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. The face Nicolai made, that was hilarious.
I think all teenagers, once they reach that little rebellious state, they need to either go into the military or they need to go to a work camp and crack rocks all day, just for a year, just to survive. And then, okay, this is how bad it could really get. Now, quit pissing and moaning about all your daily little routines. They're really not that big anymore, are they?
Yeah.
I mean, it would wake them up to reality. I know my biggest wake up was joining the Army.
Yeah.
I'm very thankful for it. My experience in the service, it taught me discipline, structure. I went in as a boy and came out a man. So I'm happy with my time in the service.
Awesome, awesome. All right. Well, Jim, stick with me. These
Yeah.
folks, the listeners, will listen to some music while we talk behind the scenes. Folks, we'll be right back.